welcome to this edition of Fast Chat. We're looking today at how the automation of incident response makes for stronger and straighter security posture. I'm Terry Sweeney, contributing editor for Black Hat. Joining us today is Karl Klaessig, Director of Product Marketing for Security Operations at ServiceNow. Karl, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure. Looking forward to the discussion, Terry.
Let's dive right into it. Everywhere we look, we see stories about a lack of qualified security analysts to expand teams in the SOC. How does automating incident response help build a SOC team's capacity as well as really mature their skills?
It's a great question to ask. So a lot of what automation can enable them to do right out of the gate is to immediately go ahead and be able to take a look at what are currently manual processes and improve them to gear up for actual automation. And it tends to automatically, pardon the pun, pull together those siloed data in teams. So essentially it drives them to go ahead and do more with less. And let me explain my thought there and chime in when you'd like, Terry. The reality is that, look, we know these teams are already stretched, right? So if we have any type of tool, any type of strategy, any type of new capabilities that can make them, so to speak, smarter and faster, it's a win for everyone, right? So right now, so many customers and prospects and enterprises out there in the SOC, they really struggle with spreadsheets, which are great for you and I to figure out our next editorial schedule. But when it comes to being able to move at the machine speed that threats do, doesn't quite cut the mustard, right? So the ability to go ahead and automate those processes, essentially work with, what are some best practices, and put some playbooks right in their hand that are really the actions and the workflows that they should be taking for success, that truly is a win for them.
Okay, with prospective customers, where do you see like the typical porting over to automated response? I mean, security processes are notoriously rich and complex, but among the automated things that can be ported over, what's for lack of a better term, low-hanging fruit for a lot of these folks?
That's a good way to put it, Terry. So low-hanging fruit is really where the need to focus first. And we always encourage our customers to, to start with the things that are really in their face day to day, so to speak. In other words, if it's a matter of an investigation flow where they have to stop what they're doing, go back, pull certain data, automate that capability right into the playbook, so to speak, so that their team is already going on to the next one. What that does is that's something they all can get a handle on quite quickly. And the old expression of success begets more success, right? So in other words, so they take those small steps like you're suggesting and get those automated, then they immediately start scaling their capabilities, for prioritization and getting a better handle on where their real threats are before they even get to the remediation steps.
Okay. Wow, so new momentum gives them more momentum effectively.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. And at the end of the day, like you heard me mention, machine speed is critical. Automating is that, really enables them to go ahead in near real time, in many cases, to do some of those initial investigations and those prioritization and those correlations to to threat tools and things like that can verify that, yes, this is a key incident that your team should be focusing on.
Okay. And are you seeing that this, in fact, does lead to SOC teams really being able to cultivate new skill sets or become experts in maybe places they were maybe more amateur before?
It absolutely does. One of the cool things that comes out of automating the workflow and investing in those playbooks of best practices and etc. is immediately you get a picture of how is the SOC doing overall, right? Not an ad hoc or not certain sections, but an overall picture. So it allows them to go ahead and say, wow, I can review the analyst's efficiency. I can identify where an analyst is either overburdened or has a skill gap, and I can figure out how to fill that. So that simple visibility, so to speak, is a huge advantage when you think about how do I go ahead and broaden and deepen the skills of that team. Really, at the end of the day, one of the big things to do is make use of that automation, the visibility it gives you into the team's outcome. Like I just described, can't stress
Okay.
enough how important it is, right? It's the old adage of you can't fix what you can't see, right? And having that visibility into seeing exactly how your team is functioning and what are some of those areas you've picked as low-hanging fruit and what the success is allows you to plan for more success.
Okay, great. Um, you and I are both having this conversation from our respective homes, sheltering in place. The country and most of the world is at this point in time. With our work at home has been a measurable increase in the
Yeah,
volume of
yes.
pandemic-related phishing and
I'm no longer
malware.
the oddball, Terry, when I work from home.
I feel the same way. I've been doing it for 20 years, and
There you
yes,
go.
welcome to our world. So you and I are maybe a little more sensitive about the kinds of emails and potential malware that crosses our desktop in the course of a day or a work week. But nonetheless, we've seen an unbelievable tsunami of pandemic-related
Incredible.
phishing
It
and
is.
malware. I'm assuming that automating incident response can make a dent in this, if not really help prevent so much of the infections that we're seeing. But talk a bit about how automated incident response can really make a difference with these event-driven kinds of phishing events or malware campaigns.
That's exactly right. And I'll dive in there with that in mind. So it can make a true difference. I mean, what you're describing, Terry, it's a perfect storm for cyber criminals right now, right? That's what we're in the midst of.
Sure.
When I think of talking with our partners and our customers, I mean, just look at the increase in Microsoft Teams. We all heard about what was going on with Zoom, right? There is an unbelievable tsunami, as you described, and I love that. Because we think of, Microsoft reported 775% increase in Teams calling and monthly use. I mean, just think about that number alone, right? And we have just from phishing emails related to coronavirus pandemic, 667% increase in the last month alone. Never mind what happened up front, right? So
Wow.
it's just very dramatic. And again, whether it's pandemic or a financial crisis, whatever the case may be in the world, that the cyber criminals are going to dive on this as the opportunity of a lifetime, right? So some of the key ways that automation can help with what they really face, it goes back to chatting a little bit on our last question, which is scaling those teams to be able to take on that much more volume, right? In other words, being able to quickly get to the root. Association is key. When you go ahead and you have things that can automate the workflow and automate some of the investigation, they can go ahead and say, oh, wow, these 500 incidents are actually all tied to the same one, right?
Okay.
So therefore, those teams are not chasing down individual pieces. They're going to the theme and realizing it's actually this one criminal going at it 500 different ways and 1,000 different people to hit in the company, right? So that's one of the key ways it can help right out of the gate is being able to scale them. So automate some of those upfront processes. And then the second way, when you think about it, is we have great information out there, Terry. I mean, we're an enterprise too, just like everyone else out there. And there's so much threat intel and blacklists and whitelists and all these, incredible resources that are out there. Being able to pull on them in near real time and help them define whether something should be prioritized or not is really a key. So the second way it can help is automate the correlation of those type of what can be prompters for you have a serious threat to go ahead and make sure that the teams are focused on the right thing. Does that make sense so far, Terry?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks for drawing those distinctions. Could we shift gears just slightly?
Absolutely, sir.
There's always been this gap between IT personnel and information security personnel.
Yes.
Culturally, skill-wise, their sense of contribution to the organization, that kind of thing. I mean, mostly friendly competition, I think,
Oh,
in a
yes.
lot of cases. But a gap and a disconnect, I think, is fair to say as well. Can automation help bridge that gap and drive more collaboration for faster and smarter incident resolution?
It absolutely can. It's a great one to bring up. At the end of the day, IT and security kind of need to drop any type of disconnection, right? Because with the volume that's out there, with the complexity of threats, and with what they are there to protect on a network, they can't afford to leave a blind spot because they didn't do a smooth transfer of knowledge between IT and security, because they didn't share some of that data, et cetera. That really has to stop in order to successfully take on the attacks that they face, right? So what automation can do is it can really help kind of tear down not just the silo, but one of the things I would emphasize, you were saying that friendly banter back and forth between IT and security, really the big piece of it, it results in a poor transfer of knowledge. In other words, you can automate what can be a workflow to go ahead and do a resolution for an incident, and it goes over to IT without any context or data. So therefore you have this back and forth going on, right? Which delays the response, which drops some of the important information. So being able to have those shared data and workflows is really important. So automating that with the right explanations and with the right context allows it so both teams know their responsibility well and know exactly what the impacts are.
Okay. I mean, does that apply across the board? Do you see that I guess enhanced collaboration creating benefits for both of the participants?
It absolutely does. So what we've seen a number of times with our customers for both vulnerability response and with security incident response, as you think about what the impacts can be with both, which are very dramatic, what we've seen is that having that shared data and that access to the context of what this means to each team has enabled them oftentimes to take what could be, quite frankly, hours and sometimes days in a resolution to what can be minutes and hours now. And if you think about that, multiply that times the volume of incidents they all face and the volume of vulnerabilities, that is a dramatic time saver for their team.
Great stuff, Karl. Thanks for joining us today for this fast chat on automating incident response. Really great takeaways here. We appreciate your time.
This was excellent. I really enjoyed the time. Great to spend some of it with you, Terry, and anything else comes up, let me know.